Hello everyone, welcome to the Yissilmissil Productions channel. My name is Steven Yissel, and today we are doing part 13 of our deep dive series into the Bermuda Triangle. So just a quick recap, we had just finished part 12 with this book. We finished it in its entirety. So now this will be used as reference. I'm going to be taking different accounts out of this book, making lists. At some point I'll do that. And that might be a whole show in itself. Just to line up all of the flaps in the Bermuda Triangle. And we'll see if we can go ahead and link that together to everything else that's going on as far as ley lines and all that other good stuff. But now that we're finished with this book, we are now going to be starting this book, Into the Bermuda Triangle by Gian Quasar. And it's a little bigger. It's a little bit bigger, you see. But it's not daunting. But I'm happy it arrived today, which means we were supposed to do this show today. I'm happy. I'm happy about it. So this book is actually, man, I guess it's like 40 years after the Charles Berlitz book. This was published in 2004. And the subtitle is Pursuing the Truth Behind the World's Greatest Mystery. So, this is where we're heading into now. I won't be surprised if this keeps us going through part 30. But even so, that's not the point here. The point is to get this information out, and if it takes as long as it takes, so be it. But I have no intention of stopping this series. We're going to continue going through all of this. We will be checking all of these different incidents with these planes. And this is, let me see one more time. It is roughly 40 years after. Yeah. 1974 was the Charles Berlitz book. 1974. And now 2004. So wait, that's actually 30 years. My bad. So we're going 30 years ahead in time from this book that we have just been reading. It's from a different author, but we'll read the flaps. So we'll start with that, and then we'll get into the first few pages. Get through the introduction, see what we can do with chapter 1. But I'm happy to be here tonight. We're going to keep this slideshow of the Autonaut, or Illuminaut. I'm calling this thing like it's a transformer here. The Illuminaut. So we'll have this slideshow going. So let's start off with the flaps, and then we'll read the back of the very back cover. A pilot reports a strange haze enveloping his plane, then disappears. 11 hours after fuel starvation. As if calling from a void, he is heard 600 miles away. He requests permission to land, then vanishes forever. A freighter steaming over placid seas disappears without a trace. A pleasure yacht ghosts past without a soul on board. A pilot calls for help because a, quote, weird object, end quote, is harassing his plane. A jet collides with an unknown, quote, unquote, and is never found. Are these events real, or just a sideshow for curiosity seekers and the gullible? These are the facts. None of the cases cited above, nor any of the hundreds of others similar to them, has ever been satisfactorily explained. Though little has been written about the Bermuda Triangle in the past quarter century, the haunting questions raised by the groundbreaking books of the 1970s have never been answered. And despite the prevailing official silence, the Bermuda Triangle continues to claim victims. Indeed, over the past 25 years, despite the universal deployment of electronic navigation systems such as GPS and reliable state-of-the-art communications, and despite the fact that in most cases searches have been immediately launched, more than 75 airplanes and more than 1,000 yachts and commercial vessels, along with their passengers and crews, have disappeared for no apparent reason and with no logical explanation. Though many of these were equipped with emergency locator radio beacons, not one such beacon was activated. Just one more enduring triangle mystery. Into the Bermuda Triangle is the first comprehensive examination of this extraordinary subject in more than a generation. Drawing on official reports from the NTSB and other investigative agencies, as well as interviews with scientists, theorists, and survivors, leading authority Gian Quasar not only sets the record straight on previously examined cases, including the infamous Flight 19 mystery from 1945, he also offers a bulging case file of new disappearances, the collective results of his 12-year investigation. In meticulous detail, this unflinching account documents confirmed disappearances of airplanes and ships, examines new testimony, and re-examines old interviews from eyewitnesses and survivors, explores possible explanations ranging from zero-point energy to magnetic vortices, and challenges our ordered assumptions with the sheer weight of accumulated evidence. Whether you're fascinated by unexplained events or eager to learn the truth behind the stories you've heard, reading Into the Bermuda Triangle is like seeing the planets start to wobble in their orbits. And Quasar wants you to understand that this Earth, far from being a conquered host, still conceals mysteries that will challenge our established worldview no less then the theory of relativity changed Newtonian mechanics. In this age of technological and scientific accomplishment, there are still things that transcend understanding. The Bermuda Triangle is one. Gian J. Quasar has achieved public acclaim from the TV documentaries based on his research that have aired on History, Discovery, Travel, and Learning channels. Acknowledged as a leading authority on the topic, he has documented and cataloged triangle mysteries more thoroughly than any other researcher. His search for clues has taken him from the high seas to the musty labyrinths of public records to the labs of, quote, fringe, unquote, or, quote, mad, unquote, science, to see the reality behind the controversial theories that attempt to answer the mystery. What happened to the missing? And now for the back cover. Still unsolved, still baffling, still claiming new victims every year. Here are the untold stories. 25 years after the last comprehensive investigation of the Bermuda Triangle, and despite modern navigation, communication, and search and rescue systems, ships and planes continue to disappear without trace into that mysterious region of the North Atlantic. In this book, Gian Quasar synthesizes his 12 years of research, work that has underpinned several television documentary films, into a pursuit of explanations that will change your most fundamental assumptions. Into the Bermuda Triangle re-examines and amends the reports and conclusions of its best-selling predecessor books of a generation ago. Investigates the unexplained disappearances of the past 25 years. More than 75 airplanes and 1,000 yachts and commercial ships with their passengers and crews. Searches every corner of science for an explanation that fits the known facts and solves the unknown mysteries. Could magnetic vortices be at work? Could a space-time warp impinge on the Bermuda Triangle? Or are these bizarre happenings a harbinger of greater upheavals still to come? Disruptions that we may be bringing on ourselves. One thing is sure, boats, planes, and people continue to disappear at an alarming rate for no apparent or logical reason. The sheer weight of evidence in this eye-opening book will keep you awake at night. This book is the historical predecessor of Charles Berlitz. And that's why I chose to begin this one today. The opening page before contents says, "To that vast horizon whose approaching will solve many riddles." So we have 12 chapters here. Some chapters are going 30, 40 pages. So we might chop those up into separate parts, depending on how the flow goes. But today, we'll start chapter 1. We will read chapter 1 in its entirety. We'll look at the photographs at the end of the chapter. And that should be the entire show for today. But we are starting with chapter 1, the Bermuda Triangle, a riddle at a nearby shore. Within the western North Atlantic Ocean, there exists what might be called a triangle of sea extending southwest from the island of Bermuda to Miami and through southern Florida to Key West. Then, encompassing the Bahamas, it extends southeast through Puerto Rico to as far as 15 degrees north latitude, and then from there northward back to Bermuda. This is the area commonly called the Bermuda Triangle. For all intents and purposes, it appears like any other temperate sea. Yet in the annals of sea mysteries, there is no other place that challenges mankind with so many extraordinary and incredible events. For this is where far more aircraft and ships have disappeared throughout recorded maritime history than in any other region of the world's oceans. Hey Texas Learny, I see you there in the chat. Good to have you here. Be sure to hit that like button. It helps with the algorithms. Alright, continuing on. With few exceptions, the disappearances have been in fair weather, sending out no distress messages, and leaving no wreckage or bodies. In the last 25 years alone, some 75 aircraft and hundreds of pleasure yachts have inexplicably vanished, despite the fact that GPS is now extensively used, that communication systems are powerful and reliable, and that searches are immediately launched. Disturbing as these numbers may seem, the circumstances surrounding many of the disappearances are what really give rise to the greatest alarm. From the files of several federal investigating bureaus, eye-opening details emerge that continue to present difficult questions that as yet have no answers within the scope of our present knowledge of the sea, aeronautics, and navigation. One such disappearance illustrates this point. It was Halloween, 1991. Radar controllers checked and rechecked what they had just seen. The scope was blank in one spot now. Everywhere else within the scope seemed normal, and routine traffic was proceeding undisturbed, in their vectors, tracked, and uninterrupted. But moments earlier, radar had been tracking a Grumman Cougar jet. The pilot was John Verdi. He and trained co-pilot Paul Lucaris, spelled Lukaris, were heading toward Tallahassee, Florida. And just moments before, with a crackle of the mic, Verdi's voice had come over the receiver at the flight center. He requested a higher altitude. Permission was quickly granted, and the turbojet was observed ascending from 25,000 feet to its new altitude of 29,000 feet. All seemed normal. Some thunderstorms had drifted into the path of the jet, and satellite imagery confirmed the area was overcast. But that was no concern for Verdi. They were above the weather. At their present altitude, they were just breaking out of the cloud cover, emerging into the brilliant sunlight. The clouds must have been their typical breathtaking sight, billowing below in glowing white hills and arroyos. Okay, this is a word I don't know. Arroyos. They were still ascending. Verdi had not yet rogered that he had reached his prescribed flight level. Radar continued to track the Cougar. until for some unknown reason while ascending, it simply faded away. Verdi and Lucaris answered no more calls to respond. Furthermore, they had sent no SOS to indicate that they had encountered any hint of a problem. Readouts of the radar observations confirmed the unusual. The Grumman had not been captured on the scope at all as descending or as falling into the sea. There had been no sudden loss of altitude. It had disappeared from the scope while climbing. It was if the Cougar and its crew had just faded away. One sweep, they were there. The next, raised brows on traffic controllers. It was blank. The ocean sitting under convective thunderstorm activity was naturally not conducive to a search. No trace, if there was any left to find, was ever sifted out of the Gulf. When it was all over, the whole incident was chalked under a familiar and terse assumption. Quote, aircraft damage and injury index presumed. End quote. So far, very few disappearances have ever been reported by the press, and if they are, they're reported with little attention to detail, or the reports studiously avoid any reference to the unusual. In 1978 and 1979 alone, 18 aircraft mysteriously vanished. Yet only 2 or 3 rated any space in newspapers. Among these missing planes was a DC-3 airliner, a large twin-engine charter on approach, and several private aircraft in the narrow corridor between Bimini Island and Miami, which are in view of each other from aircraft altitudes. Yet, nevertheless, all vanished as if surgically extracted by a hand being careful not to affect the surrounding heavy traffic on that route, which reported no signs of wreckage or unusual weather. Even apart from the strangeness of the events preceding and surrounding some disappearances, it appears fairly obvious by the number that something is very wrong. Although it is often publicly recited that the Bermuda Triangle's reputation is based on 20 planes and 50 vessels posted missing over the last 100 years, official records vividly show that such a number can be and has been easily exceeded in any given 2-year period. On an average, however, 4 aircraft and about 20 yachts vanish each year. The frequency of those 2 years is alarming enough. But out of all the alarming elements in the statistics, it is not the isolated surges of losses that are the most intriguing. Dossiers on all aircraft accidents, which include missing planes, are still maintained, and behind the scenes, they monotonously document the startling repetition. A quote, brief format, end quote, usually just called a brief, is available for pursual from civil investigating authorities, particularly the National Transportation Safety Board in Washington, D.C. These handy and most terse 1 or 2 page chits preserve the known facts. Considering the brevity of the information, the nickname brief is not a misnomer, especially prior to 1982, before the board enlarged the scope of information contained on the sheets. Their pages, though, quietly testify to the actual number of missing planes in the Bermuda Triangle. Computer searches of the database files of the NTSB for several time brackets reveal some sobering statistics. It is quite surprising to examine the briefs and notice what is not in the newspapers. For instance, between 1964, the oldest dates for the brief records, and 1974, 37 planes vanished. The period from 1974 to 1984 show that 41 aircraft have mysteriously disappeared in the Bermuda Triangle. The pattern was the same, mostly over the Bahamas. It continued from 1984 to 1994. 32 vanished. And from 1994 to the present, which this book is 2004, 20 aircraft have disappeared. Although it may appear that the number is on the decrease, this decrease mirrors the economic downturn of the late 1990s and dropped sharply after September 11, 2001, when traffic was severely curtailed for a number of reasons. There is no evidence, however, that the circumstances for disappearances are any less unusual than before. Mystery continues to strike. On Christmas Eve 1994, a Piper aircraft vanished over West Boca Raton, Florida, one of the few instances of a plane ostensibly disappearing over land. Although radar operators could never find a trace of it in their tracking readouts, a witness below clearly saw the investigation lights of the Piper, or the navigation lights of the Piper. Investigation proved it must have belonged to Laurent Abscassis. So that last name is spelled Abecassis, who had taken the plane out earlier in the day for some practice flying. On May 12, 1999, an Aero commander, while approaching Nassau, disappeared from radar for 30 minutes, then miraculously reappeared, though the pilot seemed unaware anything had happened. Before the plane and the pilot vanished again, this time permanently. Hey Ivy, good to see you here. On February 1st, 2001, Casey Purvis was in his Cherokee 6 playing radar tag with a Coast Guard aircraft as a practice maneuver. Suddenly, he reported himself in a fog, then vanished. Wreckage from the aircraft was later found near Marathon, Florida Keys, where he last reported himself. Weather from both the nearby Coast Guard aircraft and Marathon reporting station confirmed visibility was clear for 12 miles. Hey John Lopez, good to see you here. On July 20th, 2002, a Piper Lance mysteriously crashed after taking off from Freeport, Grand Bahama. After having been in flight long enough to have been halfway to Florida, it was found only 15 miles from its point of departure. Radar tracking cannot explain it. The phenomenon of the bizarre is not abating. Factual aviation accident reports are available from General Microfilm, the National Transportation Safety Board's documents contractor, from 1978 onward. Hey Jason H., good to see you here in the chat. We are starting the new book that we picked up. So I'll show you real quick. We went over it in detail here. Into the Bermuda Triangle. This is 30 years after the Charles Berlitz book, and this is the in spirit predecessor, or not predecessor. The Charles Berlitz book is the predecessor to this, so this is the official follow-up from a different author in the capacity that it's in. Like, we got a thick book we're going to be reading here. But we're on chapter 1 right now. So the factual aviation accident reports are available from General Microfilm, which is the National Transportation Safety Board's documents contractor, from 1978 onward. Those prior have been destroyed. Carefully sifting through those accident reports brings to light a pattern interwoven with tragedy and mystery. Together they create a sobering picture of sudden and many times bizarre disappearances at sea in a confined area. Quite often, when faced with the facts, the curious have come away badly jolted. The pages they read bear some recurrent themes in the losses, and these in turn open the door to some potentially explosive issues. Hey Juan, good to see you here in the chat. Got a bunch of people in the chat here, this is great. Everybody involved in one particular case, tower and radar controllers and listening pilots alike, was dramatically affected by some frantic last words. Uttered in a desperate voice, they introduced all their elements, stark and frightening, in the mystery of missing planes. While in flight near the coast of Puerto Rico on June 28th, 1980, about 35 miles out, Jose Torres, the pilot of an Ercoupe, this is spelled E-R-C-O-U-P-E, signaled that a, quote, weird object, end quote, in his flight path was forcing him to change course. Despite all his evasive maneuvers, the object continued to cut him off. And that's not all. He reported his equipment was on the fritz, and he was now lost. Quote, "Mayday, Mayday," end quote, he continued to call. Then, as astounded controllers watched, the plane vanished from the radar scope, with Torres and his passenger, Jose Pagan. Minutes later, an object reappeared on the scope and then flitted away. In what manner it fled, the report would not comment. A search that night cast beams of light on a dark ocean. It was the typical nothing. A bland ocean surface crisscrossed with streaming beams of Civil Air Patrol spotlights. The crests and swells were devoid of any trace of an accident. Many of the other planes have simply vanished while in sight of land, while coming in for a landing, or after having just departed, occurring, it should be emphasized, between a single sweep of the radar scope, less than 40 seconds. Others have vanished over shallow waters, less than 10 feet deep, yet with equal lack of trace or silhouette to mark their position, as if magically they just faded away, while others have vanished during radio contact, as in the case above, blurting such words like, quote, "Is there any way out of this?" End quote. Another quote. Stand by. We have a problem right now. End quote. Another quote. Oh, Jesus Christ. End quote. And one more quote. What's happening to me? End quote. Or reporting that their compass or directional gyro is going berserk. The missing boats are not just specks lost on a big ocean. Many have vanished just at the edge of the harbor, while others cruising around a peninsula. And others have been found drifting shipshape, lifeless, the occupants gone, without leaving any clue behind as to what happened. In no search undertaken by the 7th Coast Guard District, which has jurisdiction over the area of the Bermuda Triangle, for any airplane or vessel posted overdue and then eventually declared missing, has a body ever been recovered. Even when the vessel may be later found, it is always found deserted, or in the case of aircraft, it is found ditched in shallow water, the ignition key removed, the doors tightly closed, but no sign of the pilots or passengers. The disappearances have not been limited to small craft. A whole squadron of 5 Navy torpedo bombers, the famous Flight 19, vanished on a routine flight training off Florida on December 5th, 1945. After the flight leader radioed, among other things, that both his compasses were no longer working. Although the airplanes had the latest navigational devices and sea survival equipment, the patrol never found their way back, nor was any trace found. Passenger aircraft have included DC-3 and DC-4 airliners, plus several other 4-engine models. Military aircraft have even included an 8-engine B-52 bomber. Large ships have included the 504-foot tanker Marine Sulphur Queen, the 520-foot Poet, and the 590-foot Sylvia L. Osa. In the case of the Osa, before she vanished, she had just signaled that she was near Bermuda, a dramatic reminder of the boundaries of the triangle. Most of these vessels were carrying cargoes that are fairly safe to ship, such as coal and corn. Some have even been in ballast, that is, empty and shipping no cargoes at all. None of these are as inexplicable as, quote, reappearances, end quote, where a pilot's radio messages are captured, receding hundreds of miles beyond where he vanished and hours after fuel exhaustion. There's something going on with the time. The time is being manipulated here. And space. In the case of the Grumman Cougar jet that vanished from radar while ascending to 29 feet, going up, the summation of one observer that, quote, there's just no logical explanation, end quote, seems to fit all of these incidences. Thank you, Juan. I appreciate you supporting my channel here. It really helps with everything. I'm fascinated by this subject here. And we're about halfway through chapter 1. So, hopefully we'll hit the hour mark. We'll probably go a little bit over an hour before calling it, but we're getting through chapter 1 today. There is a growing belief that there is something very different out in the Triangle as opposed to other seas. Since ships and planes disappear in like manner, there seems to be little possibility that ordinary mishaps such as pilot error, vertigo, fuel exhaustion, getting lost, disorientation, or natural disasters like tidal waves, cyclones, or whirlpools can be the sole culprit. While some of the above can be deadly to planes, they are not to ships, and vice versa. Furthermore, such destructive potential as some of these pose should also launch into motion devices called automatic alarms. An EPIRB, or Emergency Position Indicating Radio Beacon, is designed to be activated when it floats free from a sinking ship, while an ELT, or Emergency Locator Transmitter, is jettisoned from or activated within an aircraft fuselage upon impact. So that's basically the black box. Both continue to transmit their automatic electronic maydays for days, even weeks, not only alerting rescuers to an accident, but also guiding them to the precise point where it occurred. While these signals are routinely picked up in other accidents around the globe, so far, not one signal has ever been picked up from those planes and ships known to be carrying them, which vanished in the Triangle. A total of well over 120 craft, planes and boats combined. While it is true that this area is heavily traveled, there is an unshakable feeling shared by many of those who live in and about the Triangle that there is something far more compelling about these disappearances than just mere statistical losses. Continuing encounters by pilots and shipmasters for one or more terrible moments with unexplained forces involving electronic drains, radio dead spots, power blackouts, and spontaneous compass malfunction, with or without unusual fogs, hazes, or luminous phenomenon, are contributing to the area's growing reputation as a unique place on this globe. Attempts to correlate these phenomena with the disappearances have inspired some of the most innovative and equally unique theories. Some have seriously proposed that UFOs, utilizing nifty electromagnetic propulsion systems, enter Earth here and whisk away specimens of Earth life. The shallow Great Bahama Bank occupies much of the Triangle in its southern corner. Aerial surveys continue to reveal surprising geometric and apparently man-made ruins below the surface of the ocean. And that is what this vessel here that we see a slideshow of. This vessel crawled on the bottom of the ocean on a road, a brick paved road, stone laid. Brick, stone, whatever you want to call it, there was a road, and this thing clawed its way across it on the bottom of the sea. I'll read that sentence again. Aerial surveys continue to reveal surprising geometric and apparently man-made ruins below the surface of the ocean. These have excited the followers of Edgar Cayce, a clairvoyant who believed that Atlantis was a super civilization of the past. According to his prophecies, given far in advance of the space age or the Bermuda Triangle concept, evidence for its advanced electromagnetic power sources, the abuse of which disturbed the magnetic and gravitational fields and sent it to the bottom thousands of years ago. Let's go over that one more time. According to his prophecies given far in advance of the space age or the Bermuda Triangle concept, evidence for its advanced electromagnetic power sources, the abuse of which disturbed the magnetic and gravitational fields and sent it to the bottom thousands of years ago, would be found in the Bahamas. In this theory, the unexplained electromagnetic forces may be residual from sunken power complexes that continue to operate and cause disappearances through disintegration of a craft or misleading it until it is dangerously lost. So, to take a break in reading here, this is saying that there's potentially an old power source from an ancient city that is still roguely, randomly powering off, that is causing all of these disturbances in the flight navigation, the boat navigation, the signals messing up. But we'll get to more of this later here. Let's continue on. Others have offered that time itself may warp and send ships and planes to other dimensions. I believe that's what's going on here. While others still have proposed a plethora of ideas like methane funnels from beneath the ocean, micro wormholes, static electricity, quote, gravity sink, end quote, and sudden rogue waves. You know, I was going to be starting a series on gravity hills, but gravity sinks are a whole other topic. I might have to do 2 separate shows on those. But gravity sink and sudden rogue waves. In the long run, however, the Bermuda Triangle's mystery is inseparable from its location, and its ultimate solution therefore must be found in solving the greater mystery of this Earth. This island at the confluence of the fabulous currents of mass and energy, and time and space. For even now, in the opening decade of the 21st century, we look beneath us to our past accomplishments rather than up to gaze at this vast and final horizon, where the secrets of the very force fields that hold this planet together remain unknown to us than was the germ before pasture. The habits of these times are to sit in our parlors somewhat at peace in our assurance that we now have vanquished the unknown over the whole earth, climbed her last high peak, sent bathyspheres to her deepest trenches below the sea, such as this thing, and swaddled her heavens in speeding satellites. We spin a globe of our earth before us, bemusedly contemplating our dominion over it, while blithely forgetting We neither understand nor can solve the forces involved in its rotation and revolution. It's a distraction as well, by the way. Hey, Monica. Hey, Woo. Man, you're all coming in here tonight. Thank you. This is awesome. I'm glad that you're all catching me here live. As a matter of argument, we are quick to add that we have long tested the strength of the magnetic field. However, along with inconsistencies, this has given us a ponderous cache of unexplained vagaries. Cold War atomic tests have revealed other mysteries of the magnetic field. All the Russian, US, and British atomic bomb drops in the northern hemisphere were followed by unusual auroras of lights in the ionosphere in the southern hemisphere at the exact magnetic opposite of the test site. Like it was blowing out the other side. And that's keeping in mind that they're working with a globe model here, so just bear with us all. This is what we're working with. This information is not found in too many places, but it's here in this book. So we can use our discernment and take what we believe is accurate and go forward with those. After the atomic destruction of the city of Hiroshima in 1945, which lies near 36 degrees north latitude, these same lights and auroras were also noted at its magnetic opposite in the southern hemisphere near 36 degrees south latitude, south of Australia. This phenomenon of magnetic opposition helps to illustrate the puzzling interplay between mass and its mysterious energy fields. Instead of disrupting the entire field line, the energy travels to the exact opposite in the other hemisphere, where visible reactions occur. So I wonder if we're talking about a flat circular location here with a dome over it, if it's bouncing off the dome and just hitting the other side of what would be the equal opposite. We don't have that information at hand right now, but hopefully we will uncover some of it as we go through here. Rotation of the Earth reveals mysteries of gravity. North of the equator, ocean currents turn clockwise, while south of the equator they turn counterclockwise. It is intriguing to contemplate, when considering this, that the forces of magnetism and gravity may be subject to similar currents, eddies, and anomalies far independent of our knowledge of their fields, still waiting to be discovered, charted, and understood. Hey Ivy, good to see you here. Acceleration of this sphere's rotation also varies the readings of gravity from pole to equator, where, in the latter instance, an object will take longer to fall to the ground. But the most astounding mystery relating to mass has come via atomic clocks. Simultaneous readings at sea level and at orbital heights have revealed to us time itself, the most mysterious force, is itself connected to mass and energy. So I would say the smaller an object, the faster time is experienced moving by, and the larger the mass, the slower the time. It could be reversed too, but that's just what I'm getting from this. I'll read that one more time, just for further understanding. Simultaneous readings at sea level and at orbital heights have revealed to us time, itself the most mysterious force, is itself connected to mass and energy, and passes just ever so slightly faster, farther from the center of gravity. So I would say you could substitute gravity for density, and you would get the same result here. Subtle anomalies such as these, though interesting to contemplate for the time being, provide no apparent danger to travelers. You kidding me? But the Bermuda Triangle poses a different problem altogether, inasmuch as its mystery is not one of permanent duration, and what is causing these unexplained disappearances remains annoyingly sporadic. Thousands of planes and ships fly and sail through its boundaries on a weekly basis, but disappearances happen apparently randomly, without warning, sometimes within minutes and only miles from where another ship or plane is cruising without difficulty, and always without reason. There is no chartable location to record other than their recurrence in the general area of the triangle. Unexplained electromagnetic aberrations continue to be encountered by pilots and shipmasters at equally random locations in the Bermuda Triangle, and no plane or ship disappears without the suspicion amongst those who have experienced it that those who vanished experienced a more intense form of what they survived. Our growing awareness that the infinite horizon of electromagnetism extends through mass, across space, and beyond time is contributing to our knowledge of the alarming potential of anomalies. But if they are indeed the actual nemesis to ships and planes, what is causing them remains as mysterious as ever. The sea itself, over which these multiple mysteries occur, would seem the logical first choice to blame. This hydrospace is vast and constantly in motion and far outside the scrutiny of our daily endeavor. We have, in due course, mapped the ocean bottoms with sonar and echo sounding. But that is hardly exhaustive. That is like saying that a NASA photograph of our land contours reveals the intricacy of our atmosphere. No mapping can unlock the potential of this hydrosphere, nor expose its interplay with the thousands of electromagnetic wavelengths flitting about the Earth, and those force fields inexorably tied to them like magnetism and gravity. Without this hydrosphere, the sea bottoms are merely vast, dry deserts, like little different or less changeless than the Sahara. I'll read that one more time. Without this hydrosphere, the sea bottoms are merely vast, dry deserts, little different or less changeless than Sahara. So they're just saying that the water has an effect on what's occurring here. And that you can't really find the intricacies of how water interacts with this phenomenon. And you can't just write it off that it doesn't have anything to do with it. Even varying depths in the oceans and its temperatures have starkly different attributes and potential in terms of function and interaction with the atmosphere, surface and submarine currents, and even pressure and gravity. The bathypelagic zone, this is spelled BATHYPELAGIC, includes most of the deepest waters, reaching more than 13,000 feet down. While the mesopelagic extends roughly from 3,000 feet upward to 700 or so feet below the surface. And we'll explore those concepts at a later time here. We're on page 9 of 13. We have 2 images to look at after we're finished with the chapter, so we're getting close to the end here. From there, the epipelagic zone extends toward the surface, making this the zone that has the most potential interactions with atmospheric changes. And hopefully we'll have a visual of this to show. Alright. Continuing on. The mineral content of the ocean may provide us with some surprises as well. Just one of its many metals, mercury, when shaken, has been proven to transmit radio signals. Well, you know, mercury is banned. Like, you're not even allowed to mail mercury. And probably because of its radio frequency properties. Not radioactive. Not radioactive here. We're not talking about that. It says here, mercury, when shaken, has been proven to transmit radio signals. Perhaps one indication of the mysterious energy interplay between the ocean and the atmosphere first revealed itself on a very low frequency radio tests conducted by both the U.S. Coast Guard and the U.S. Navy back in the 1950s. Listening out over the ocean, both picked up sounds that can be best described as whispering and whistling. What exact force is creating these provocative sounds remains unknown. It continues to be picked up only over the oceans today, as verified by several independent VLF radio owners. So is this... So they're saying one of the many metal minerals that are in the ocean is mercury. And if it's in the ocean, it's going to get shaken up with the waves. Are these people hearing radio signals coming from the water because of the mercury? And that's what they're hearing, the whistling and whispering? I'll catch up on the chat here. Monica asks, I wonder if we will ever actually find out why so many disappearances happen. I remember they tried to say a certain gas was coming up from under the water, was coming up and causing the equipment failure. Well, methane has been known to do similar effects on things. Jason H says, I think it's poisonous in gas form. Yeah. But it keeps showing up in mysterious stuff. No. Yeah, you wouldn't want to breathe any of that stuff in, I'm sure. Alright, let's continue on here. Thank you all for being here. You guys are awesome. I'm excited to dig into this book. And we're getting pretty far right now. And we're over the 1 hour mark, but we're going to finish this chapter and we're going to look at the photos in this chapter and then call it. So we have about 3.5 pages left here. Perhaps one indication of the mysterious energy interplay between the ocean and the atmosphere first revealed itself on very low frequency radio and on radio tests, which conducted both by the U.S. Coast Guard and the U.S. Navy back in the 1950s. So I covered that part already. But although the sea and its currents have great untapped and even as yet mysterious potential, only the Bermuda Triangle stands out for its anomalies and mysteries to travel. Other areas of ocean continue to be equally traversed as the Triangle without incident. Or at least the intensity of mystery. Like, without the intensity of mystery. The 1st Coast Guard District off New England handles about as many search and rescue cases each year, 9,100, as the 7th District, 10,200, which encompasses the Triangle, a reflection of the similar amount of traffic and trouble encountered in both areas. But in the last decade, the combined disappearances of planes off New England amounts to 4 or 5 in foul weather as opposed to the Triangle's 20 in fair weather. So that's 4 or 5 in foul weather flying off of New England, and the Triangle's 20 disappearances in fair weather. Also, accidents over surrounding land bordering the Triangle, though just as traveled, present no similar statistics for sudden loss of aircraft and subsequent impact into the ground. It is only after traveling into the Triangle that sudden disappearances occur. More detailed mapping of the ocean bottom, in particular the Bermuda Triangle, has been prompted by several unexpected events and has contributed to the mystery of its missing ships and planes. After the tragic loss of the Challenger space shuttle in 1986, the Navy used sonar and underwater cameras to scour the Gulf of Mexico and the Atlantic up to North Carolina, which covers a large section of the Triangle. According to the orders, every square foot of ocean bottom down to 6,000 feet was to be examined, and any piece of the shuttle larger than a dinner plate was to be retrieved. In addition, a $16 billion project called SOSUS, Sound Surveillance System, is maintained by the U.S. Navy to secure the ocean bottom from foreign submarines. Part of this is the careful painting of the bottom by hydrophone sensors to sketch an image from the ocean floor to the surface in order to detect any anomalous bottom changes that could indicate foreign subs poised for an attack. Nevertheless, there has never come any reports of finding the many large freighters, airliners, or other distinctive military vessels and planes that have vanished in the Bermuda Triangle, although it was over this area where they last reported themselves. It may be that no one was concerned with the shape of a vessel or plane on the scanner during operations if it didn't match the object of their search, nor thought to re-examine the readouts afterward in light of explaining old sea mysteries. But the release and re-examination of this data may help to solve some of the mysteries in this book if the data is ever made completely public. It may also mean that there is no mystery to catalog at all, a point of view the Coast Guard or any other authority is officially quick to embrace. Skeptics continue to point out that ships and planes vanish in greatest quantity where the traffic is the heaviest, implying the losses are not only expected but acceptable. In the case of the Triangle, however, a, quote, statistically acceptable, end quote, number of accidents seem to be made up of a disturbing and unacceptably high proportion of disappearances. There are those who would remind us that given the powerful currents in the triangle, like the tumultuous Gulf Stream that runs off Florida out into the Atlantic, any plane or boat can be broken up into bits and pieces unidentifiable on the bottom or carried off far across the Atlantic until effectively it has, quote, disappeared, end quote. For the Coast Guard's part, their feelings are summed up as follows. Quote, the Coast Guard, in short, is not impressed with supernatural explanations of disasters at sea. It has been our experience that the combined forces of nature and the unpredictability of mankind outdo even the most far-fetched science fiction many times each year, end quote. They're a bit of assholes, aren't they? Interpretation of this naturally depends on what one would consider supernatural. Is the currently unexplained supernatural? Was wind shear or clear air turbulence supernatural before both were discovered? Would disintegration by electromagnetic aberrations be supernatural simply because there is, as yet, no cross-reference for them? Is travel through space or time supernatural? Often, quote, natural, end quote, seems to get equated with, quote, conventional, end quote. I think that's why these government agencies have the stance they have. They'd rather go with the conventional explanation of things. There is no marine or aeronautic authority, including the Coast Guard, that would place such dogma in a report. Many of these reports, formally restricted or secret, have included meticulously researched data and have also included phrases or words like, quote, North Wall phenomenon, end quote, referring to the Gulf Stream. Quote, violent unknown force, end quote, and, quote, beyond probability, end quote. As a part of the catalog of the meager debris received, or retrieved, there is also included the notation that an unexplained, quote, magnetic particle, end quote, was found embedded in a recovered nose wheel of a missing aircraft. While skeptics debate the very existence of the triangle, even those who find it a bone of contention in its shape the term triangle dates only to 1952, when writer George X. Sand's Sea Mystery at Our Back Door appeared in Fate magazine. In it, he outlined its most enduring shape between Bermuda, southern Florida, and Puerto Rico, noting that, quote, within this watery triangle, off the coast of Florida, end quote, ships and planes disappear, quote, without leaving a single clue, end quote. The name Bermuda Triangle dates only to 1964, when Vincent Gaddis, Gaddis, added it to the colloquial term Deadly Triangle in an article for Argosy magazine. And in parentheses, end quote, it says the Deadly Bermuda Triangle, end quote, end parentheses. Out of those who have studied the phenomenon, no two have agreed on a precise periphery, though most concur that the majority of disappearances occur within the triangle between southern Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico. Ellipse or lozenge has been offered, as have a circle or ovoid body off the U.S. East Coast, alternate triangles connecting to Norfolk, Virginia, and a limbo encompassing the East Coast and even the Gulf of Mexico. To satellite engineers, the triangle extends along the continental shelf farther down into the Caribbean, a periphery determined by places where satellites sometimes experience glitches and frits. Excuse me. But return to normal after passing over. But long before the Bermuda Triangle was identified as such, unexplained disappearances had frequented the area and baffled contemporaries. The Spanish kept meticulous shipping records in Madrid because gold was involved, and noted the high incidence of missing galleons. Derelict vessels found in the 19th century could not be explained by weather, piracy, or mutiny. Yeah, because there'd be nothing on them. But when aircraft started disappearing as ships had before, it added to the greatest element of the mystery to the triangle, of suddenness and no impact, because there were no maydays and immediate searches found no debris. But none seemed so inexplicable as the first publicly recorded incident in which planes vanished. An entire squadron of torpedo bombers during a routine exercise in 1945. Also, of a rescue plane sent to search for them. In a sense, we have come full circle, for it is this incident that started it all. The disappearance of Flight 19 is, without debate, the beginning of the Bermuda Triangle, the cause of its subsequent shape, name, and the most enduring part of its fame. To appreciate the present, we must go back to the past. To past events and man's confrontation with what he thought could never happen. And that is the end of Chapter 1. Now, before we go, we are looking at the photographs that are in this Chapter 1. So I will show you those now. I'm pumped to read more of this. Alright, so first diagram we have, it says black stars represent points of magnetic opposition as noted in atomic bomb drops, as we were reading earlier. Also, an object actually falls faster at the poles than at the equator, a phenomenon dependent on the rotation of the globe. I don't know about that. Causing bulging at the equator and a flattening effect at the poles. The mathematical notations show in centimeters the acceleration of an unsupported body at each location per second squared. Very accurate atomic clocks have recorded time passing slightly faster at higher altitudes. I guess I'll point this out here. Atomic bomb dropped. Equal outward magnetic force happened over here. Atomic bomb dropped up here. Equal force showed up down there. And then that is obviously Hiroshima. And south of Australia had a magnetic anomaly happen after Hiroshima got atomically bombed. That is very interesting to me. So it explains that the energy has to go somewhere. So next we have a map, and it says, despite underwater mapping, the Bermuda Triangle may hold considerable surprises for us. It has some of the deepest waters in the world, like the Puerto Rico Trench, a 220-mile-long fissure at the bottom, and about 5 miles deep north of its namesake. Other areas of mystery include the deep and unapproachable undersea desert, the Nereus Abyssal Deep, just north of the Tropic of Cancer, and the Hatteras Abyssal Plain. Wow. So here we have a map. You obviously see Florida here, but then we get closer in. You have the Abyssal Deep, north of the Tropic of Cancer. Got Bermuda, the Abyssal Plain, and then the Puerto Rico Trench. But you see this? You see how much land is here? And see how shallow it is around Florida? Look at that. So this probably extended out over here. This probably used to be a river at some point, for all we know, if there was less water. That's it, fellas. I am done here for today. I really appreciate all you being here. Next week, we will be starting Chapter 2. And that's going to get into all the airplanes. The riddle of missing planes. So we are going to get through this entire book. It just might take us a little while for some of the chapters because they're up to 40 pages at some instances. May not look like much, but we did get pretty far today for Chapter 1. And I'm just going to check the comments here real quick. Jason says, think the radio sound is where the mermaid siren lore comes from. Yeah, this is really sounding like we have liquid mercury in the ocean that is transmitting radio waves that sound like whispers and whistling. But there also may be some paranormal thing going on there too. Like, we're just scratching the surface right now. But we're going to be getting into this material. It's going to give us some really good gems that are probably tucked away in the middle or at the end of the book. So that's why I enjoy reading all of this stuff, because we are going to come across material that isn't commonly talked about. And this is the spiritual next book to what Charles Berlitz wrote. So I'm happy that we're doing that. So this book was in 1974. There wasn't a full comprehensive book like this again until this book in 2004. And you could just tell the difference. We have done 13 episodes or parts of this deep dive with this book. But now we're getting into this one. We got a lot more information to cover. That's an extra 30 years of research, plus it's going over some of this material again in a more updated fashion. And it sounds like some of those reports that are in here, there's like 4 years where everything was still available before the government decided to just make it all unavailable. So you got that. So we have chapter 2 coming up next, and let me check the amount of pages. It's going to go up to, we're starting at page 14 and it's going to end at page 51. So chapter 2 with all the missing planes, we might actually divide that up into 2 or 3 shows. That way this doesn't turn into a 3 to 4 hour stream, because I'm trying to keep it within 2 hours, sometimes an hour if I could really nail it. We're getting close to an hour and a half, which is perfect. But let me finish reading the comments here. Monica says, it doesn't explain the ships or planes disappearing. If the equipment failed, that wouldn't cause it to disappear. Yeah. The mercury causing whispering is weird and creepy. Yeah, and it also could be picking up other signals that's being transmitted. So like some of these people on the ships, and especially the people on the ships, they would be hearing maybe music from other radio stations, because I really think it's picking up signals that are coming in or being broadcast out. It's like picking them up. If they're being broadcast off the East Coast, there's going to be some drift with the signals, and it might eventually hit like the tops of the waves, and then you get that effect of the noise. It's an interesting explanation to me. I really want to look more into that, because this is today the first time I'm hearing about this. And then Monica says, happy to be here and let you read some knowledge about the Bermuda Triangle to us. Thank you, Monica. I really appreciate you being here. Because, I mean, YouTube's really trying hard to not have me have that many viewers on here. I don't know what the problem is. But this is the most I've had in quite a while. So I thank you all for being here. And but that'll do it for today. So just make sure to remember 6 p.m. Central Eastern Time, or Central Time, Central Standard Time. We'll be doing this at 6 o'clock on Thursdays. And tomorrow I have an interview with a, ironically, a radio broadcast professional that actually taught me in high school with broadcasting for television and radio. So we're doing that tomorrow, and that shouldn't go longer than an hour and a half too. Jim's a busy guy. He wants to start at 4 o'clock tomorrow, 4 p.m. Central. So we'll be doing his interview tomorrow. And then, Saturday's the Chicago Film Industry Deep Dive, which is at 11 a.m. Central. And then Sunday is my chill, relax show, where we're just going over things, and that's also at 11 a.m. Central. So that's it. I'm going to get out of here because I talk too much sometimes. But I hope you all have a great rest of your Thursday. And until the next one, class dismissed.